Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, Dom, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm real good. It's good to be back with you. This is our first time actually seeing each other because our
That's
last
right.
call was just a call, like an old fashioned
I
rotary
know, right?
dial phone call.
Yeah, right there. It's kind of weird. They don't happen too often anymore. It's so much Zoom or now finally getting back to in person, but it's a pleasure to finally see you here.
Yeah, you too. You too. And we know each other through this
Yeah,
weird
that's right.
world of entrepreneurship and business ownership. And
Yes.
yeah, I
That's
saw.
I've actually been finding more and more how many connections I'm realizing I have through the EO network.
Yeah.
Not for any kind of shameless plug there, but
No, be
it's amazing
shameless.
just to know that, I was just in Savannah last week at a leadership conference and meeting people from all over the country and even from a couple from out of the States as well. It's just, fantastic to be a part of and to get to meet folks like yourself. Can't ask for much more.
Thank you. Well, we haven't finished the interview yet, so we'll see. You might.
I'll reserve my comments for that.
Yeah, exactly. That guy is a, you know what? Yeah. Hey, before we get into today, we're going to be talking about people and culture and retention. You've got a very cool story. You've got a great origin story. And you're in the middle. You're still building. You're not done.
Yes. Yes, correct.
But instead of me telling it, why don't I, Kevin Welsh, who the heck are you? And how is it
Yeah.
you come to be speaking to all these forward facing business owners in construction all around the world?
Dom, that's actually a good question but I think honestly, it's come from my passion for wanting to lead. And really, years ago, some folks who were clients of mine had kind of seen that in myself and said, "Hey, look, do you want to join us and do you want to try and start something new for yourself?" And I said,
Oh,
"Yeah, let's do it." I was tired of the runaround that I was doing. And so, fast forward, we just celebrated our 5 year anniversary June 1st. So just
nice.
recently here. And, I have found out that more and more over the years, like, sure, the numbers, the organization, all that kind of stuff is a strength, but leading and passion and really making sure we understand, why we're all tying our shoes in the morning. I've kind of figured out, like, if I focus my attention on that, then good things have happened, and
Huh.
that's been the case over the past few years. Just really making sure I know why my shoes are getting tied, and then ultimately challenging others.
And you're in an interesting place. You're definitely on a business path, right? You're talking like a business person who happens to run a contracting business.
Yes,
You do blinds, so I don't want to call it
correct. We do
construction, but it's
window
still in
treatments.
the it's still the trades business, right?
Correct. That is correct.
But has it always been like that? Have you always thought about team and about people, or were there days you came in going, "We got to sell, we got to manage, we have problems"? Like,
Yes, all
oh,
of those things.
okay, good.
All of
So,
those things. Yeah. So I would say probably 45% of my journey was that. The other 55% has been on this other side.
uh,
And those first couple of years, it was just anything I could go sell, anything I could install, any way that I could get in and help out with our team, or gosh, I'm sure as many other folks on listening to this have experienced once or twice, or hopefully not too many more times. But how the heck are we going to make payroll tomorrow?
oh, what a
You
fun
know,
that's a fun and normal conversation for
Oh
all of
my
us here.
goodness. I wish that had been talked to me about before I decided it was a good idea to quit my job. But years later and it feels all great and wonderful. But yeah, it was
Tough
really
times.
trying to get ourselves involved with the contracting community down here because we're really at the end of the tail, on that dog. Window treatments are the last thing anyone ever thinks about, but we are part of the dog.
You're part of the
And
whole thing,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so we really wanted to make a conscious effort to let any of our contracting and or builder relationships know that, like, we're here to help you and what you're doing, and hopefully from that we get something nice out of it as well. But our whole mission was, how can we make you and your experience you're delivering for your
Yeah.
clients better? Because if we can make it better for you, then hopefully you'll try and make it better for us.
Wow. I had another guest on named Sean Yan, YAHN, and he's from American Window Concepts. And he
Okay.
said almost the same thing as you. You
Really?
should get on his YouTube channel. He's got a
Okay,
YouTube channel.
I
Yeah,
definitely
he's
will.
awesome. I'll introduce you guys. But he said
Very
almost the
cool.
same thing as you, that we're here. I'm here to help. How can we help?
Hmm.
Now we're running a business. So helping means I'm going to get paid.
Yes, correct. And we've had times where, more than one occasion, where I'll say, hey, look, you know what, this model home or these parade of homes or whatever's going on, like, we're just going to pay to outfit it. As long as you let us go stand in that home all weekend and give these people the best possible experiences, they're coming through your house, so they feel like they just walked into Disney. Or
wow.
they just walked in Disney, don't come sue me or anything. But, so like,
oh, they'll come after me, not you. Don't worry about that.
Right. We ultimately want to make sure that everyone understands, if you come across the name Budget Blinds, whether we're installing, measuring, or selling, that you have a good experience with the individual wearing the jersey. And our whole team has really kind of embodied that message. And, we try and help little Miss Jones anywhere we can, whether she's crossing the street or with her window treatments.
Yeah. You're always wearing that uniform, right?
Yep.
Let me paint a picture here for people, because you mentioned you're 5 years into the journey. 45% of it was tough slogging. And now you're on the 55%. You're going through that change in your business. And everybody listening to this show wants to change their business.
Correct.
Everybody's definition of that is different. So we'll leave that to all the listeners. But what did if you had to describe your team at the end of year 1, and you had to describe your team at the end of year 5, could you do that for us? Because what I want people to hear is that where you are today does not have to be where you are in X amount of time.
Yeah, wow. That's a really astute question. I would say at the end of year 1, our team, because we had bought an existing business that really needed a lot of polishing. And at the end of year 1, our team was still wondering if they could trust us, still wondering, who we were. And we were, in the best sense of it, because we're not too far from the Outer Banks. Imagine a house on stilts, but, well, 3 legs are gone. And we were really just relying very heavily on a few key people in different departments. And that is no safe way to operate the business.
So you had gaps. You had gaps on the people side.
Yeah, tremendous amounts of gaps. And where we thought we were doing a great job trying to cover those gaps, ultimately were things that we thought were problems as owners. But our solution wasn't the right solution for those that had to go out and actually deliver the solution in the field. And so for a while, it was like this headbutting of like, no, we're doing it this way. And then the other side going, yeah, but we've done it this way for X long. And you guys don't know what you don't know. And it took a long time for them to finally realize, oh, maybe they actually do know. Maybe there is an understanding as to what's happening here. And, go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, I've got a question for you there.
Please.
That you just brought up such a cool point. This is what I wrote. Our decisions weren't based on real field experience. So who wasn't getting it, if I can say that? I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but did we as owners say, well, it must happen this way? And our field was going, actually, that's not how things work. Or were we saying this is how things have to work, and the field was resisting, even though it was the right way to do things?
Probably more the second.
Okay, so they resisted your attempts to make things run smoother.
Yeah. So just think about the name of this podcast, right? The Profit Tool Belt. So underneath a previous owner, salespeople were yelled at if they didn't discount a certain percent because he felt it was doing an injustice to his end users or his clients. And I was kind of like, all right, guys, here's a new concept. Who gets discounts? And they all kind of looked at me and I was like, people that ask for them. If you're breathing, you don't get a discount. Like that's not a qualifier. So even little things like that from the sales side of things, where there was a ton of operational pieces that were very slow, product taking forever to get in and out of the warehouse and into a customer's home, obviously slows down cash flow. So we had to clean that up, but simultaneously while we're cleaning that up, we also needed to clean up our sales process. And then somewhere in the mix of all of that, I also realized that the commission structure that was there on day one that we said, all right, we're going to stick with this. It was paying people prior to the job being done. And I said, that's got to stop. So It was both A and B. There were some things that they resisted from us, and there were some things that we were probably a little too close-eared on, and not willing to listen and maybe taking a slower approach.
Yeah. And was some of that listening because you also didn't trust them, or you didn't, their results weren't giving you what you wanted, so why would I listen to that?
Maybe. I don't know if I've ever actually thought of it that way, but there's probably some of that for sure. I mean,
in my quiet moments, that's what I do. I'm like, why am I resisting that guy? Because I don't like him.
We bought a business that at the time had 9 employees, and you're kind of getting looked at under a microscope, and so I didn't reflect as often on my own actions as I do now, because I felt as though, well, I'm making the call, you just go do it. And, ultimately that's not a collaborative process, and I'm not a uncollaborative person. So.
Yeah. Leadership. One of the things that we learn as we grow is that leadership doesn't have one flavor, command and control type of leadership that maybe you learned if you were in the military, or if you ever worked in a firefighting crew, like that's somebody yelling and a bunch of people doing stuff, because that works there. But you can't just have one management style.
Yes.
Right. There has to be a time to drop the hammer for sure and say, it's going to happen this way, folks. I appreciate your input. I'm not listening to any of it. This is going to happen. And then there's other times to say, what do y'all think? Right. You have to, at least from my perspective, I found that changing up my style helps the most.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I may have brought this up on our initiative. I can't remember, but so I'm one of 3 owners here, but ever since 2018, I have been the sole operator. And it was one of those moments where, leadership comes in different forms, because someone has to lead the owners too, right? Like if no one has decided I'm the leader, well, that's somebody, anybody, nobody. And there was a call where I looked at my partners, or, over the phone before Zoom was a big thing. And I was like, guys, we need to make a change. I'm not so sure we really know what we're doing here in terms of our direction, our leadership, the organization, because we've all tried to take a chunk or a department that we feel like we do best. But then when we step back, like we're all delivering on 3 different lanes, and that's not helping the team.
You're not focused on, you're not aligned on the same goal.
Correct. So basically I was like, look, we can still all as 3 owners, focus on our own areas, and in our quarterlies and, a half-year retreat, like we can take ownership for each one of those things. But when the message goes to the employee, like moving forward, it's just coming from me, because there has to be a sole singular source of that voice, for these folks to not wonder like, all right, well, I heard Kevin say this, but
or the other guy say that
conversation with so-and-so last week, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. And then as 2018 ended and 2019 began, I kind of sat in front of the whole team and said, look, we've kind of jumped in the hodgepodge with you, and we've done a little bit of everything and all this other stuff. But ultimately, if we want to take this ship to another level, we're really trying to go, like, moving forward. Yeah, you all know us as the franchise name, but we also have a legal entity, and those are who we are. And here's the core values if you're going to come work at this legal entity. Right. And that's just the case moving forward. And also, guys, in order for me to properly lead you all, I need to be doing less work in the field. Because if we don't have someone operating at 100% in a leadership role, but I want everyone to operate 100% in all these other roles, doesn't that sound a little counterintuitive?
Yeah.
So the team really kind of bought into that and understood what my message was. And, it didn't happen the next day. But, we're at a point now where I'm amazed almost every day at the things I hear our team doing, stepping up to help each other out, that I would have been called in to do once upon a time. And now I'm just finding out in arrears.
That it happened.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Please take this as a compliment. And here it comes. You're getting all red in the face. For people listening to the audio, this is also a video for YouTube. One of the things we talk about on the show a lot is that this whole show is made so that we all become business people who just happen to be in construction, contracting.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing you talk about here, is that you stepped into the business owner role. You just happen to run a Budget Blinds, 6 Budget Blinds franchise locations, right? You're still servicing residential accounts. But yeah, you made that shift. Did you do that shift sorry, first, do you agree with my observation?
Yes, very much so.
And then thank you. And then was there a day you realized that, maybe in your own words, but what was that watershed moment?
It actually had to do with EO.
Yeah.
So
We talk about EO a lot on this show. People are always like, what's this EO
so
thing?
My son was born. He was our first child. And about 4 or 5 days after he was born, we wound up having to go back to the NICU and like, some little jaundice stuff, nothing like crazy, thank God. But we did have to stay at the NICU for 2 weeks with him. And
stressful.
Yeah. And so I want to say like 3 nights in, I remember looking at my wife and I was like, hey, this afternoon, like, I got to go. I got to go sit in this meeting for 4 hours with like 4 people you don't know who they are, and you got to stay here. And I really need to do this for the benefit of myself and the business. And I remember getting into the room, sitting down, everyone's doing their 1-word openers, and there was someone else who maybe his was like, oh, tired. I was like, oh, geez, you think you're tired. But I also do remember there being conversations where I kind of very quickly put my hand down and said, well, let's back up a second here. Like, I understand you want to make the statement of, well, but that's just blinds, or like in my industry. And anytime I hear that, no matter who it is talking, I just say, do you have customers? Do you have employees? Do you have revenue? Do you have expenses?
Yeah. All right, doesn't matter whether you do plumbing,
we're both doing
roofing,
the same thing.
Building, concrete, selling guitars, doing dental work. Doesn't matter. It's a business.
Correct. And I think that for me was like, I think because I was already so on edge as it was, and then that conversation happened and I made that comment, and that it really sunk in. And I was just like, you know what, moving forward, this is the case. Like, I own a business, and Audible tells me I'm apparently a professional. I've listened to, a couple 10 days worth of listening and, all this stuff. And I've just found that anything that I'm like, I need to know more about that, I just dive in 2 feet, and I just learn and read as much as I possibly can. And then I implement it as quickly as I can. And sometimes a couple months later, we're like, we're not doing that anymore. And there's a fine line of constantly evolving and changing, and the team getting tired of it, and finding the right changes to implement, and they understand. And I've also kind of had that little balance and figure out over the last probably 2 years as well. Because I used to come back and be like, I got a new idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. And then what do they do? They're like, Kevin's got a new idea. Give it 2 days. He'll forget.
Yeah. So it's, there definitely was a moment in time. And I think it was that I was in the pressure cooker of life and everything all happening. And I think so easily, when we get put in that pressure cooker as people, it's easy to fold. And I just told myself I wasn't going to. I was just going to increase the pressure, and hopefully it turned out good. And I think
it's what it makes you. But we're not even done the interview. This has been fantastic. Lots of insights from you. Thank you. Lots.
No problem. Yep.
But that kind of pressure is what helps us grow.
Yes.
Right. We have to change. We have to adapt to the pressure. And for everybody listening, I want you to, we all have our own path. We're all doing our own thing. Some of you build fences, some of you build pools, some of you demolish fences and pools. It doesn't matter what the trade is, like you just said. But the question here that we're here to answer is, how do I need to change to get the results I want? Because if I'm not getting the results, I have to change before everybody else changes around me. I can't just yell at my team and yell and yell. I've got to show them something different. I have to have logic behind that.
Mm-hmm.
I call them simple systems. That's not a very complex set of words, but it's very easy to overcomplicate things.
Sure.
I found it to be very hard to keep things simple, simple, but simple works.
It does. Simple, stupid.
Simple. Well, thank you for adding that. I won't take it as a personal observation. Hey,
KISS.
KISS. Keep it simple, Stanley.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So let's talk about that 1 year, 5 year change. If we had the team 1 year on this side of the ping pong table and team 5 year on this side of the ping pong table, did you have to, I don't know why I said ping pong table. Did you, were there some people that you had to change, and I mean, let go, or maybe even move throughout the organization? And how painful was it coming to that realization and then doing it?
Oh man. Yes, and yes. So right away, actually, the very first change we had to make was probably about 2 months into owning the first three franchises we had bought. There was a general manager in place there, and I'm like 6'1", 6'2". He's about 6'8", so he's a little intimidating. But all of a sudden, he knew, like, he wasn't dumb to it. His shares got bought out prior to us, coming in there and so forth. And so it was a duplication of effort. But at that point in time, I had never let anyone go. And so, letting him go was definitely a little bit of a weird, fearful thing because so many people on the team would just be like, oh, well, we don't know something, we go to him. And I was essentially saying, well, now you're going to come to me. And that was part of that whole trust challenge, for a while there.
They're all worried that they're going to get fired too, that you let go of George.
I think maybe some of them were. Yeah. And then I think also some of them were like, well, great. Like, do you have the same technical knowledge he did? And, the answer was yes on like the 99% of things. There was a 1% that like, no, I didn't. But, for the most part I could. And I'm also a big believer in YouTube. So if I didn't know it, I was going to go find it out. But then there was also, you brought up the idea about like changing people. And what I realized was that, there was one employee particularly I spent a long time trying to change and thought I, was really helping that person become better. And I think I did. But ultimately it became a cancer within the company. I think that my tie to wanting to advance this younger person's life held on too long and probably let the cancer sit too long. And that's a lesson I won't ever forget. And I've made my team very, very aware of that. Because ultimately, like, my team is going to know first and foremost, my role is to make sure that they want to come back here to work every single day.
Yeah.
And that if they have something going on in their lives, that I have ears and I'm willing to try and help them. But they also do know there's a fine line of infringement. And, when an employee's actions or trouble start to infringe upon other employees' livelihoods and their day-to-day and things of that nature, I can't tolerate that the way that I did once upon a time. So, there was a lot of changes that the team had to go through. At one point, we had some siblings working for us, and we let the one sibling go because she wasn't doing that great in our ops for the direction that we needed. This person, but not for the direction we needed. And ultimately, then her sister, wound up leaving a couple months later, and we kind of knew that was probably going to happen.
Yeah, you try, but it's going to happen.
And so like many business owners, all of a sudden you're like, what do we do? And you find anyone and everyone you can to help out. My wife actually came on board, and for like 2 years, bless her heart, worked unpaid. And really fixed a lot of issues and problems. But that actually, and we've talked about this a bunch, that in itself also created a problem because now employees, my wife is fun loving, everybody has a great time around her, but she's very intelligent. Well, they would go to her asking the question, what should we do here?
Split the leadership.
And correct, right? So now it's this conundrum of like, well, it's the owner's wife. Like, she's given the same answer as Kevin. And there were times that I wouldn't have given that answer. And so that was a challenge too. We've been through a little mix of it all. Ultimately, get to the point where even times where I've realized that the business has grown, it's expanded, we need to cover another little area or make sure we're doing that. And I tried to move a body into that seat. And within 2 weeks, realized that was the wrong body in the seat. And I couldn't get mad at that person for it. I ultimately was the one that said, hey, I think this is the way we need to go. And what I found was that, we kind of did that a little bit one other time, but it was the right person who was able to, play air cover, but play air cover so well that we were able to kind of move that air cover into a whole new role, quality control. And that's what the role became, So, that's a touchy subject when you try and say to an employee, hey, we need this. And I think you can do it over here. And they really don't want to. But I really don't want to go hire someone. And I've learned that is you can't force those things upon people. It's just not good for anyone.
Yeah. It's what I'm hearing from you, and what I love hearing from you, is that you're willing to make a decision and then look at your decision again and say, did I make the right decision? How do we need to change it? Not blaming the person. I thought they had the skills, or let's just say for QC, I thought they'd be detail oriented enough. I thought they'd be willing to be not confrontational, but be willing to talk to somebody else in the team and say that quality is not good enough. But if they don't really have that in them, it's just not how they grew up. It's just not who they are. And then you realize, we've got a good person. We moved them into the wrong spot.
Yeah. You'll actually love this, Tom. So the way that we found out that one person was going to be great for this quality control role was, I don't know who spurred the idea. It might have been my business partner, but we picked like a random Friday, and I said, all right, we're going to have 2 installers answer the phones all day. They're now going to be the customer service person, and they're going to know what that world feels like.
Wow.
And I've had customer service go out and install as well.
Yeah.
Now there's a degree to which they can install, because I don't want them putting, breaking someone's glass or, whatever. Yeah, right. Yeah, so, but we had that happen. And the girl that is now in my quality control position and is someone that I really consider like an employee advocate here. She's fantastic for our core values. I heard her pick up the phone. And I was upstairs in my office, and I just hear like through the stairs, like, hi, thank you for calling Budget Appliances. Ashley, how can I help you? All excited and bubbly. And, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me solve that for you, whatever. And I just came downstairs and I looked at somebody else. I was like, that's the person right there.
Oh, she was an installer first, and then you brought her in to be customer service, and it turned out that's her happy place.
And then it turned out like we didn't really need her in that customer service role as much as like we were going to take her skills of installing, her skills of handling customers, and create this quality control for any time we have to go troubleshoot something, or a customer calls us, hey, I noticed a couple of days later X, Y, and Z, or bought this from me 2 years ago and this happened. Can somebody come take a look at it? She's fantastic at dealing with people who are upset and bring them down to a real world level and
real world level.
Yeah, right. Not this like, oh my God, my house is burning down, even though it's just a blind that won't raise.
Yeah.
And so, we very quickly realized that her skill sets were perfect for that spot, because it allowed her to still use her hands, which when she originally came to us, she left working at a Goddard school for like 8 or 9 years and was like, I want to break the mold and do something different. Like, I want to go install, I want to do something with my hands. Yeah. And so I was even a little worried when I pulled her in. Like, hey, she expressed to me this is why she came here and what she wanted to do. And we've had a lot of very open dialogues. And every time I come up with an idea, I'll look at my team and said to them yesterday, guys, like, if you think this is great, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if ultimately, like, I finish saying this and you guys think, no, Kevin, that's pretty dumb, like, tell me. Just don't let this conversation go any further. Just tell me right now, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we don't think that's a good idea, and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And through those very open conversations, we eventually found out like this role is fantastic for her.
Excellent. And so you were open to it. She's open to it. She's happy in her role.
Yep. 100%.
Hey, let me go back for a second, just because you raised something that a lot of people deal with. People call me from the podcast all the time. They want to work with me in some way. And when we start to talk about the people side of their business, they don't say the word, I have a cancer in the business, but I got a problem. And sometimes it gets pretty hairy. It's my cousin, it's my brother, it's my partner, it's this new person we hired, it's the foreman, it's somebody irreplaceable. Regardless of everybody's situation out there, if you had to define cancer for me, cancer in the business, what would that look like? So I don't want you to use names, but this person was doing X, Y, Z.
I would say it feels like when the whole team is together, that moment when like someone kind of makes a comment and everybody kind of looks at each other.
Yeah, it's the wrong comment. Yeah, what?
That really just gets said out loud. That was happening. I could see it starting to bubble a little bit, and I could see the looks and so forth. And then there was maybe like 1 or 2 kind of big blow-ups that ultimately teammates found me and found a point to say, hey, like, what's the deal here? And one of the things that I've realized is that as entrepreneurs, we'll ask for anything, we'll talk to anyone about anything. Like, it's just who we are, right? Most of us, I think. People that are not entrepreneurs, it's not bred into them. Like, I just had some conversations with an employee of mine who, we're going through some tough times, and she said, "Hey, look, I want to take on more because I need more."
Like, she needs more stimulation or more money, like money
financially. Yeah.
Yeah.
And great employee, meets all the check marks of I'm okay with having this conversation. And, but ultimately I said to her, like, all right, cool. So here's what you're going to do. If money's a problem, I'm happy to have the conversation. I'm happy to help, but I'm going to teach you how to use this cash flow template that I use for the business and myself personally.
Yeah.
And I've implemented with a couple other employees because they brought this issue to me as well. After you fill it out, it's going to tell you how much you're underwater each month. And then you're going to come back to me, and you're not going to show me any of these numbers. I don't want to see it. But you're going to tell me, "Hey, Kevin, this is where I'm at, and I need to make this much more." There's a ceiling. Don't be greedy, but the ball's in your court. Tell me what you need. You're a great employee. And so anyway, so she comes up here yesterday, and it was very cute watching her. She's like looking at me, like waiting for me to talk. I'm like, "So what are we doing?" And, "Oh, I don't know." And, like just really, like
not wanting to just get down to.
It took a lot to pull it out to the point where I was like, "Look, why don't you just tell me all the things that you feel like you've grown or you've accomplished over the last year?" And she told me all the things. I said, "Great. I think you deserve a raise. So are you ready to tell me the number yet?"
She still wouldn't tell you.
We finally got there.
Yeah.
But that was like probably the second or third example I've had since owning this company that I've realized the way that I'm built and the way that I think is not how my employees are built or think. And for me to assume that they're going to think like me is ridiculous.
Thank you for saying that, because business owners, we're not normal.
Oh,
in a crowd of 1,000 people, there's one of you and one of I. There's one of you. There's one, maybe one in 1,000. And so when you go to a concert, you go to a game in a stadium, how many business owners are actually there? Just look at that sea of faces. Most people are not business owners. And so when we listen to the radio, when we read the news, that's not written for us. It's written for the people who are employees, who work at a company, want consistency. It's not written for the leadership mindset. It's not written for the systems and simple systems and operations mindset. That's why shows like this exist, because we're all here and we're all like, "Oh yeah, that's right. What Kevin's saying is absolutely right." But you can't talk about it outside this room.
I want to challenge that, Don, because I talk about it all the time to my employees.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. I always encourage people to like own your weirdness, right? So you mentioned I'm getting red on camera, and I already know that, like, if the temperature goes up, if I smile, if I'm mad, I'm getting red. So it doesn't matter, right? I'm willing to talk about anything because I'm already going to look weirder than you. It's okay. And so, I think I made the comment to you earlier this morning. I looked at all my employees. I said, "Guys, you're going to tie your shoes to go work somewhere, or you're going to go on a business, or you're not going to work." There's like 3 options. But if you're going to tie your shoes and you're going to go to work and you're going to walk in our front door and you're going to come to work here, this is what we live by. Nice. This is how we operate. And, if there are challenging scenarios, I'm not afraid to basically say to them, "Look, guys, my role and what I'm tasked to do for the greater good of us is this. Your role is not that role. And that's totally okay. But I can't do your role and you can't do mine. But if we all want to be successful, we need to live by our employee promise, which is everyone here matters. Everyone hears what matters. We all succeed." And it wasn't until I really, really grasped that concept that I need to make sure I'm really hearing them and not just them hearing me. Because I own the business, but they're the face. They're the ones doing it, and I need to make this the best place possible for them to want to show up every day, because again, they're going to tie their shoes and go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I'd prefer it to be here, especially with the folks that we've got, but I'm not I don't know. I've been in a lot of conversations with business owners, and I'll demonstrate or I'll talk about something I said to my employees. You said that? Yeah, I did, because it's the truth, right? And I think sometimes there's this fine line of, just because something is hard to hear doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to say.
Hmm.
And I think when we hear the right things more often, no matter what our role is, employer, employee, husband, wife, spouse, whoever, if you need to hear something, you need to hear something. And I don't know. I sometimes when I look at folks who I know who have some issues with keeping employee and retention and things like that, I feel it's a one-way street of conversation and direction. And the only two-way that comes back is, well, that person sucks, and this person sucks, and that person sucks. And it's, well, if a hurricane hits your house, you should have lived somewhere else. It's kind of my mentality. So, maybe you suck. Sorry to be a little harsh there, but
no, this is good. There's a ton of people who are laughing right now and agreeing with you, except for the people in Florida for hurricane season. They're like, well, hang on a second. I grew up down the street. This is where I live.
And you know what? I heard that quote in a book, and it just really resonated with me, with the sense of, like, I don't mean it from the literal sense. And if anyone's getting affected by hurricanes,
no.
Yeah, I hope you're okay.
Oh,
from the sense of, like, everything we do is a choice.
Yeah.
And if you want to get mad at anyone, you should get mad at yourself first.
Well, that's taking personal responsibility. Ultimately, as a leader, an individual failure on my team is a failure of me as a leader at some level. I have to either fix it or fix the person or fix the situation, fix the system.
Yep.
Right? It's ultimately comes back to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
By the way, you talk about if a hurricane hits your house, you should move. I remember we were in Italy and we went to Pompeii.
Nice. Oh, great place.
Where Vesuvius, Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah, I saw it a couple of years ago. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome there. It's really beautiful. But I was reading, one of the signs is like the mountain has erupted 6 times and they keep rebuilding the city. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, why? Like, what's going to happen. Why are you rebuilding the city? Move, go somewhere else. But people continue, banks keep giving mortgages, insurance companies keep underwriting it. People keep building houses and schools.
Well, so here's I think the piece that, and I'm hearing you saying that I love about the quote, is that it's really just saying don't complain, right? Like it's not saying you have to move, right? No. If you really love that place, sure, like keep getting hit by a hurricane, just don't complain about it.
Yeah.
And that to me
is
or
move. Yeah, do something.
Yeah, right, there you go.
Or move. Yeah. Or don't build your house of sticks, right?
Exactly. And that's one that I just, whining and complaining about things. I just don't see the point. And I've got the phrase that I live by. And part of that is, I don't like to waste the energy or emotion on things because, quite frankly, both those things boil back down to your heart. And I don't feel like having a heart attack early.
Yeah, no. It's the concept that you're talking about. I teach. It's it actually comes from the Oz principle. Have you read that book?
I have not. Oz principle.
Yeah, OZ, the Oz principle, and it's even older. It comes from a study at a university where they talk about people having an internal or external locus of control. This is where I get business coachy, geeky a little.
Yeah, bit. I love it.
Yeah, but people that have that attitude to take responsibility, to take ownership for the things they do. They want to move forward. I don't want to say visionary, but they're always looking at betterment. Like the young lady who came to you and said, I need to make more. So give me more responsibility, please. That's a visionary kind of thing, even though using that word in that situation is a little too strong. But people who take ownership, who take responsibility, who are proactive in their lives are those kinds of people. And that's easy to talk about because maybe everybody listening to this show, including you and I, just see the world that way. But the opposite is this: people who place blame, people who make excuses, the kind of people who are negative or they're always in denial, the kind of people where if you got a good parking spot and I got a bad parking spot, it's because you're always lucky. The boss likes you better. But they never say, Kevin got to work earlier. Kevin left his house earlier. They just blame me for they blame. They're always blaming. So that's the opposite. And that's where it looks now. If you build a team based on that kind of people, your life as a business owner is kind of lousy. Look at you just nodding your head. Yeah.
Yeah. I know some business owners like that, and I feel for them.
But you attract it. See, if I'm below the line, I attract those people. If I'm above the line, if I'm a winner, positive, proactive, take ownership, take responsibility, then I should repel those people. But that's why I asked about cancer earlier, because you got to recognize blame culture, excuse, negative, denial.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Sorry if this turned into a coaching meeting.
No, this is the stuff that I love doing. This is stuff I love talking about all day long. And, I'm in a weird conundrum right now, so I just talk about, culture and retention, what else is there? I mean, part of my strategy and my plan is, well, I have a obligation to my two business partners that at the end of this year, I'm out of the day-to-day. And for a long time, I was trying to find a general manager to backfill myself. And ultimately, the more and more we look, unless we brought someone in outside of our culture, it's probably getting a little bit more challenging to do that. And so I'm taking like a phased approach where I'm basically just elevating and bringing some people up, and essentially giving them some authority boxes and saying, hey, here's where you can operate and, where you can't and all that type of stuff. But it's mainly for the sense of like, if I want to evolve as a business owner and I want to continue to grow, I need a lot of other people wanting to take my job, and if that's not the case, then I've basically just signed myself up for a job all the time.
That's right.
Like right now I'm finding that I'm getting closer and closer to the position of like, I'm like consulting my team. I'm not having to run the business as much. And that's ultimately what my goal is to just be there to consult and lead when they need help. And I'm infamous for, if they have a question, I'm probably not going to answer it. I will stare at them until they figure it out. Or I'll just keep asking them, like, well, what do you think? And then sometimes they'll say an answer, like, what do you think? I say, I don't know. You already said what you think. What does it matter what I think? But do you approve? I don't know. Do you want me to approve? And, I'll just keep challenging it back so they can kind of like walk through all the scenarios of good, bad, and different. Yeah. Ultimately figure out, like, at this point, the decisions they're making are a decision I would make. Right. But that doesn't come without empowering them to make that decision. And that's a really, really challenging spot. It was for me, of like, well, I know this stuff. I need to be the one to make this call, or I'm the hero. I need to be the one doing it. Right?
It's the hero mentality. It must be me. Exactly. I need to be there. I need to get there early. I need to be there late. If they don't see me swinging the hammer, they'll think I don't know how to swing a hammer.
Yes, 1,000,000%. And so I remember one time, 2019 or so, my install manager, he came up to me after I was like trying to help out with something. He kind of just like tapped me and he's like, "We got you." Just like, go. You don't need to be here doing this. We've got you. And
you're getting in the way. You're getting in the way and you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, light bulb moment. Like, wow, I'm not actually that good at this. Or, it's because I'm out of practice or, whatever, right? But these folks do it all day, every day. And when our livelihoods, when our families, when we risk a lot as entrepreneurs, my wife quit her job, I quit my job, we moved down here to do this thing. Like, you put a lot on the line. Yeah. Yeah. And to just think like, yeah, I'm just going to trust these other people to do it. It takes a while to get there. And now I'm at the spot where like I would close my eyes and trust any of my employees with my kids, because if they treat my business the way they would treat my kids, then my kids would be in great hands.
No, this is a long change from the team at the end of year 1 versus the team at the end of year 5. Okay. Yeah. So, that we're not on the original topic you and I agreed on, but this is still one of the greatest interviews I've ever done. So thank you. Okay. Huge compliment to you.
Well, thank you.
So what's the team at year 10 going to look like?
That's a really good question. And I don't know the answer, and I think that's a challenge, a spot that I'm in right now. And I'm going to get up real quickly. My screen's asking me if I'm still working, and we are still here, Dom. So I just want to make sure.
No problem. Still here. You're good. I can talk to an empty chair.
There you go. So I don't know. And part of that boils down to what we're building at an ownership level and what our next steps are. So because we've spent so much time building out the organization and setting up the right profitability for this business, we just 2 weeks ago closed on our building. So we bought our office warehouse.
Congratulations. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
and
fantastic.
So we're looking to hopefully basically under like the profit first kind of mentality, create another real estate arm or some other business arm.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, right now I'm looking at things like through a lens at just budget blinds and what's going on here. But ultimately I see it as like someday there's going to be a larger kind of umbrella. And so to me, the team seems much bigger, but it seems like there's multiple facets that look exactly like this team, just doing something else and something else. And I know that's probably much easier said than done. And part of me is like, nah, just find passive things to make me more money. But I also love empowering people. So
that's the entrepreneur's mindset. It's looking at, you're a business person who just happens to be in the contracting business.
Correct. And so I'd like to say the team looks a lot bigger in 10 years. But it's not something I have nailed down as hard as I want. And I read about other cultures where like a 20-year plan is considered a short-term plan. I'm like, oh gosh, what am I doing?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you listen to the Family Business podcast over in Europe with Russ Hayworth, 6th generation shoe business we've never heard of.
Yep. And it's just still going and making money and doing great and all this stuff. And so that's the part where, there's another piece to this, that myself and my partners, we're all in different stages of our own lives. So what happens in 10 years might be also dictated by that too. So we've got some challenges ahead of us. We've got a retreat in August. So you've just posed a great question for the retreat.
You go. Well, I have an exercise. After we're done, don't hang up. I'll share the exercise with you. It's very simple, but it's what I do with people when we go through a strategic planning process. Because the future's coming.
Yeah.
That's no big statement for me. I think, it was in a movie somewhere, but the future's coming. And no matter what we do, it's coming. 10 years will pass. 100 years will pass. I'll be gone in 100 years. But hey, listen, I don't want to leave a skid mark. I want to leave an impact, right?
Yes.
So what am I going to do between now and then? Right? And how am I going to influence my kids? So that this is one of the things I try to think about as an entrepreneur. I don't know how many people I'm talking to right now, and you don't know how many people are listening. We just don't know that. But what I hope is that one day, and I'll use my own family, one day my daughter is sitting in a college cafeteria somewhere, and one of her friends says, I'm trying to start this landscaping business, and I don't know, it's so hard to find clients, and it's hard to find people and trust people. And I hope my daughter says, what my dad always says? He says this, and that. Why don't you try that? And that's the first level of it. But what I really want to happen is that my grandchildren will say, what my grandma, when my daughter's a grandmother, that her grandkids will say, what Grandma Valencia used to say, do this with, treat customers right, find a recurring revenue business so you can build a solid foundation, get good equipment and take care of it, treat people with respect, all of those things. I'm long gone. They don't even remember my name. And they're giving all the credit to my daughter who said something in a college cafeteria one day. That's what I'm here for.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. My wife and I we're talking about some similar things about that recently. We had tried to start a business that eventually we figured out like it didn't actually match our vision. And the vision is that our kids and our time with our kids is number one.
Yeah.
So we spent like 90 to 100 days trying to make this thing work, and then ultimately hit this spot where it's like, if we continue to go this route, we're going to be giving up something. But during that process, we were talking about it. I remember saying to someone, like, one of the parts that was difficult for me is like this idea of what's my legacy for my kids and what are they talking about? And like, I hope someday my kids can, our parents were so cool. They did this, they did that, or whatever cool is in their mind. But also, there's something that I've got a call with a teacher at a local high school next week. I want to create a scholarship next year.
That's so fantastic.
And I only want to do it around like how are students helping their community? Like, it's not academic wise, it's not entrepreneur wise. It's just can you show us how you're helping your community? And if so, here's some money to help advance your education. And like, so I think about things like that. And I say, well, that to me, I'd love to leave a legacy that my kids, you know, when they're 40 or 50, there's this thing is still going on, you know, and it's making a huge impact. And it would, you know, I'll start with budget blinds, you know, and set up the business right here to be able to kind of shift that way and maybe create a foundation or something along those lines. But it goes back to that idea of like, I tied my shoes, doing the business. What the heck else am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, and that to me is just like, gosh, I've seen some pretty awesome scholarship things where it's just make a video and whatever. And just to think that like myself, my partners, and even my team here who's responsible for everything that happens could have an impact on 5 to 8 different individuals' lives, you know, outside of window treatments, count me in.
Yeah. And it's funny in a quirky way that what we're talking about window treatments.
Yeah, right.
This is it's an entrepreneur's conversation. So anybody listening here, if you do mold remediation, if you do gutters, if you're a general contractor, commercial, residential, it doesn't matter what we've talked about today. By the way, folks listening, this is not the topic Kevin and I agreed on.
I forgot the topic actually.
The topic was people and culture and retention and what else.
Yeah, that's right.
But I know in listening to you, I've very much enjoyed it because it's been the entrepreneur's perspective on running a business. And now we've gone to the legacy level, which is that's the creation part of, that's why we're not working for another company. So we've got all of the opportunity to be who we want to be and do what we want to do. That's the American dream. We're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Right? There's I remember I think you'll appreciate this. So when I finally pulled the trigger and made the decision of like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to leave my job, this is what we're going to do. At the time I had a 4-door Wrangler and I had the top all the way down. And a friend of mine I went to high school made this song called Doing Me. And it's basically like, you know, blank what they say, I'm doing me.
Yeah.
Volume maxed out, man. I was just driving up and down the Richmond listening to that. And I really felt that I was finally coming to this point of like, you know what, forget what everyone else says and how they think I should operate and where I should work or how I should live life. Like, this is going to give me a chance to dictate it for myself. And no one's ever going to stop that train except for me. Like, I will be my only downfall. Maybe I've tried to be close to that once or twice, but you know, not on purpose. But I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm trying to stay out of my own way and basically stick to this idea that, yeah, I'm put on this earth for a reason. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not for someone else to tell me. And I know some people aren't that way, but I fully identified that I am that way. And I'd be really just an upset person if I was still working somewhere.
Yeah. And that's why I said, if you're in a stadium, how many other business owners are there? And then how many leader business owners, you know, how many people of all the people that do listen to this podcast or any podcast like this, you know, you mentioned the Profit First system, of all the people that follow that system and listen to my podcast, how many other contractors or construction professionals are there in the world? It's such a tiny percentage of people who've self-selected to be a forward-facing business owner, to lift their chin and raise their chest and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I can do it. Let me go hear what other people are doing to make that happen. Let's go to wind this up, even though we barely touched on our topic. I still think we've had a ton. It just means you're coming back again in the future.
I was going to say, I'd be more than happy to come back and actually talk about the topiip we started to think we're going to talk
You got to keep me on track. Maybe what we'll do is you can interview me on it so that we stay on track. If people want to find out more about you or learn more, how do we find you in this big wide world?
Sure. Best way to find me directly is just on LinkedIn. Just check out Kevin Welsh. You'll see Budget Blinds owner there. Look for James Madison. That's how you know it was me. Go Dukes. And then if you want to learn more about Budget Blinds and us here locally, you can go to budgetblinds.com/Chesapeake. That's where our main office is located at. And anyone in the Hampton Roads area, Virginia, we're more than happy to help you out.
Fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem. Thanks, Tom. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.